precisely 1:15. This is the news on Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News is edited by Romesh Piris, read by Sabrina Zawahir. The headlines. President Wickremesinghe announces Sri Lanka and India to explore land connectivity, but warns of shrinking space for smaller nations amidst growing militarization. More arrests in Operation Yuktia within 24 hours, ending at 12:30 a.m. today. New applications called for Aswasama allowance. The Finance State Minister says increased allowances for police officers from next week. Stranded Sri Lankan factory workers return from Jordan. A 15-hour water cut in parts of Colombo today. Traffic restricted on New Caledonia Bridge till Monday. And in world news, Imran Khan's party on track to win Pakistan election but falls short of a majority in parliament. And in sports news, Pathum Nissanka enter the ODI record books with an epic knock against Afghanistan at Pallekele. Now the local news in detail. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has announced the commencement of a feasibility study for a land link between India and Sri Lanka. Speaking at the inauguration of the Indian Ocean Summit in Perth, Australia, President Wickremesinghe stated that the proposed land connectivity would leverage the strategic locations of the Sri Lankan ports of Colombo and Trincomalee, transforming them into regional hubs for trade. President Wickremesinghe highlighted the region's unique multipolarity and its resistance to domination by a single power. However, he cautioned against growing militarization and geopolitical maneuvering and warned of the dangers of militarization and shrinking space for smaller nations caught between major powers. The President noted the absence of a singular geopolitical vision for the Indian Ocean, leading to various interpretations and tensions. Moreover, President Wickremesinghe condemned recent attacks on commercial vessels by Yemeni rebels, highlighting the importance of ensuring freedom of navigation in the Suez Canal, Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. He stressed the need to combat piracy and protect critical infrastructure like undersea cables. Further, he envisioned Sri Lanka becoming a regional logistic hub, leveraging the Colombo and Trincomalee ports to benefit South India. Meanwhile, President Wickremesinghe and India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jayashankar held bilateral discussions on Friday on the sidelines of the 7th Indian Ocean Conference in Perth, Australia. The two sides have recognized the progress in bilateral cooperation and resolved to continue deepening them. Another 663 suspects have been arrested by the Sri Lanka's police and security forces personnel within 24 hours, which ended at 12:30 a.m. today. The arrests were made as part of the ongoing countrywide anti-drug Operation Yuktia. Among the arrestees are 547 suspects who were taken into custody on narcotics-related charges and 116 others who are on the list of wanted criminal suspects. The ministry also mentioned that warrants had been issued against 14 of the suspects for drug-related offences and that 95 others had open warrants against them for non-drugs-related offences. The Ministry of Public Security said detention orders have been secured against 2 of the drug suspects, while 2 others were referred to rehabilitation centres. According to the ministry, the narcotics taken into custody during this period include 175 grams and 191 grams of heroin, 171 grams and 197 milligrams of crystal methamphetamine, 515 grams and 538 milligrams of cannabis and 807 cannabis plants. Finance Minister, State Minister Ranjit Simbalapitia said the food, travel and accommodation allowance for police personnel, which were increased by the 2024 budget, will be paid at the beginning of next week. The minister said in addition to the allowances received so far, half of the allowance increased by the budget will be paid immediately. The minister further said the allowance of 17,000 rupees for junior officers is to be increased by 11,800 rupees and 50% of this is to be paid immediately. This news is brought to you by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
Continuing local news, the Sri Lankan embassy in Amman said that it had succeeded in repatriating 59 Sri Lankan employees who were employed at 2 apparel factories in Jordan. The embassy statement said in coordination with Jordanian authorities, the embassy yesterday repatriated 50 batch of 59 Sri Lankan employees, out of which 221 who were employed at 2 apparel factories with their salary dues, social security benefits and other entitlements. The statement further read that the mission's efforts will continue to repatriate the rest of the Sri Lankan employees as early as possible in consultation with the Jordanian authorities. The welfare of the remaining Sri Lankan workers will be ensured until their repatriation. The 221 Sri Lankans working in the apparel factories in Jordan were stranded for several months after the factory owners absconded. The Highway Tourism Police announced that the road leading to the harbour from the new Kalaniya Bridge will be closed until Monday, the 12th of February due to repair work. Accordingly, the lane from Katunayaka entering the Kalani Bridge and heading towards the port was closed from 9 p.m. yesterday to 5 a.m. on Monday. Meanwhile, entering the Kalani Bridge from the Urgodawata intersection and entering the harbour entrance from the middle part of the bridge will be closed. Police said vehicles travelling from Katunayaka to Colombo on the expressway and vehicles entering from Urgodawata and travelling to Katunayaka will not be hindered by this closure. That ends local news.
Elevate your life with People's Bank Excelsior. A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
The Social Welfare Board of the Finance Ministry is calling for new applications for the Aswasuma Social Benefits Program to select 400,000 more beneficiaries. Accordingly, eligible persons can send their applications to be considered for the Aswasuma Social Benefits Program. Finance Ministry sources said that certain criteria for the selection of beneficiaries would be revised based on the suggestions made by various parties. The new Aswasuma beneficiaries who are entitled to receive this allowance ought to be selected within the first quarter of this year, and they will receive the allowance starting from the 1st of April. That came to you from Main News.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board says the water supply for parts of Colombo will be suspended today for a period of 15 hours. Water cut will be in place from 5 p.m. today until 8 a.m. on Sunday. According to the NWSDB, Colombo 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 areas are affected by the water cut, which is being imposed due to essential maintenance work planned under the Ambatale Water Supply System Improvements and Energy Saving Project. That came to in Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
Taking a look at the headlines of the world news, Imran Khan's party on track to win Pakistan's election but falls short of a majority in parliament. Israeli snipers killed 21 civilians outside Gaza's besieged Nasir hospital. Prince Harry settles phone hacking claim with Mirror Group. Now the world news in detail. Jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan gave an AI-generated victory speech from prison as his Tehreek-e-Insaf party was on track to win the largest number of seats in Pakistan's parliament, although falling short of an absolute majority, Pakistani media reported. The latest count on Saturday morning showed PTI-linked independents having won 99 of the 266 seats, with Sharif's PMLN winning 71 and Bhutto's PPP with just 53. A majority would need to be 133 seats. Votes for another 43 seats were still being counted. The victory came as a surprise to many, with the PTI seemingly in tatters with Khan and many other party leaders in prison following a massive government crackdown on the opposition. Israeli snipers have killed at least 21 Palestinians after they opened fire on displaced civilians trying to reach Nasser Hospital in southern Gaza's Khan Yunis. Israeli snipers had surrounded the hospital and were shooting at every moving object as people were trying to reach it from two densely populated residential neighborhoods near the facility. Rights groups said the Israeli military repeated attacks on medical facilities, doctors, nurses, medics, and ambulances must be investigated for war crimes. The Duke of Sussex has settled his remaining phone hacking claims against Mirror Group newspapers. The publishers will pay all the Prince Harry's legal costs plus around £300,000 extra in damages, sources say. The settlement relating to claims of unlawful intrusion on 115 stories marks the end of a 4-year battle between the Prince and the publisher. The 115 stories were published between 1996 and 2010, and Prince Harry spent 2 days in court last June being grilled about his claims that the information could only have been obtained in unlawful ways. The court then ruled in December that there was evidence of widespread and habitual use of phone hacking at the group. That ends World News. Prior to concluding, the headlines of the World News once again. Imran Khan's party on track to win Pakistan election but falls short of a majority in parliament. Israeli snipers kill 21 civilians outside Gaza's besieged Nasser Hospital. Prince Harry settles phone hacking claim with Mirror Group. That ends World News. Moving on to development news. Premier Roger Cook of Western Australia met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe on Friday as part of the President's official itinerary in Perth for the Indian Ocean Conference. During the discussions, the Premier conveyed his state's keen interest in renewable energy and agricultural development, along with establishing direct aviation connections between Sri Lanka and Perth. He emphasized Perth's strategic location on the Indian Ocean as an opportunity for South Asian nations to foster closer ties with the broader Australian region. President Wickremesinghe highlighted Sri Lanka's ongoing efforts to develop its renewable energy sector while underscoring the country's vast potential in this area. That was development news.
Moving on with sports news.
Opener Pathum Nissanka played a marvellous innings to complete a double century and enter the ODI record books yesterday at the Pallekele International Cricket Stadium. He remained unbeaten on 210 in 139 balls with 24s and 8 sixes, which enabled Sri Lanka to post a mammoth 381 for 3 wickets in 50 overs against Afghanistan in their first ODI. Afghanistan skipper Hashmatullah Shahidi won the toss and decided to field, but his decision backfired on them as Sri Lanka piled up a massive total with openers Pathum Nissanka and Avishka Fernando paving the way to build up a solid partnership of 182 in 160 balls to send the Afghanistan bowlers on a leather hunt. The wicket was flat and bowlers couldn't do much as Sri Lanka gave off their best with Nissanka leading with an epic knock. That came to you in sports news.
Go ekakthiyana youth කට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දැකපු පුහීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
A delegation from India's Amul company arrived in Sri Lanka to conduct inspections of farms owned by the National Livestock Development Board. The inspections, which began yesterday, are part of a preliminary assessment before the farms are potentially leased to Amul. The National Livestock Development Board owns 31 farms spanning over 28,000 acres of land. As part of the leasing process, the board has initiated an appraisal of the farm's value. Approximately 80% of these land value assessments have been completed to date. In addition to the land, the Animal Production and Health Department has evaluated the value of the animals residing on these farms. The National Livestock Development Board has confirmed that this report has been submitted to the President's office. That was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැක පුහීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news, State Minister of Finance Ranjit Simbalapitiya said on Thursday Sri Lanka's state revenue had increased by 25% in January following the increase of value-added tax. Addressing Parliament, the lawmaker said that the estimated state revenue for January was 219 billion rupees, but the government collected 274 billion rupees in January 2024. Simbalapitiya said the Sri Lankan government collects revenue through the Customs Department, the Excise Department and the Inland Revenue Department. He added that the Customs Department has collected 121 billion rupees, the Excise Department 39 billion rupees, and the Inland Revenue Department has collected 114 billion rupees in January 2024. That was economic news.
Weather report.
The Met Department's forecasting division today said that fair weather will prevail over the island. Mainly fair weather will prevail in the sea areas around the island. Winds will be northeasterly and wind speed will be 25 to 35 kilometers per hour. Wind speed may increase up to 55 kilometers per hour at times in the sea areas off the coasts extending from Galle to Puttuville via Hambantota and the sea areas off the coasts extending from Colombo to Kankasanture via Puttalam. The sea areas off the coasts from Galle to Puttuville via Hambantota and the sea areas off the coasts from Colombo to Kankasanture via Puttalam can be rough at times. That was the weather report. Prior to concluding this bulletin of news, the headlines once again. President Wickremesinghe announces Sri Lanka and India to explore land connectivity but warns of shrinking space for smaller nations amidst growing militarization. More arrests in Operation Yukthia within 24 hours ending at 12:30 a.m. today. New applications called for Aswasuma allowance. The Finance State Minister says increased allowances for police officers from next week. Stranded Sri Lankan factory workers return from Jordan. A 15-hour water cut in parts of Colombo today. Traffic restricted on New Caledonia Bridge till Monday. That concludes the news, and over to my friend and certainly yours who's all geared up to keep you entertained with a wonderful collection of music indeed. Over to you, Asanka.
Thank you, Sabi. That was Sabrina Savahir bringing you news at 1:15, the main newscast, and I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of the day and a good Sunday tomorrow. So that's for her. And for you, the lunchtime music segment is coming up next. This is Radio Sri Lanka.